And we're going to get going early here. And I'll tell you, I am aware of the time change. I understand daylight savings time. I posted 2 videos this morning with the correct time on them, and YouTube put them each up 1 hour early. So I actually wasn't sure what was going to happen here. So I figured, you know something, I can't figure this stuff out sometimes. So I'll just go ahead and go live. So we've got a few people here. The early birds are always the one who catch the worms, so to speak. Mike Toph asks about the new channel trailer I put up. I'm not sure why so many people saw that. It's supposed to only go up on the channel itself if you come to my landing page. But I had a video up there for 3 years that said, hey, welcome to my page. And I thought it seemed kind of old, so I just updated it. But I put that up this morning, wearing this shirt, by the way. So, Michael Goodwin, let's do this. So, dude, you asked for it. We're doing it. Ram 50 V8. Good morning, Steve. I am currently on the highway heading back to Arkansas. It's 46 degrees and windy coming up on Springfield, Illinois. I'll tell you right now, we got 20, 25 mile an hour winds here right now, and there's actually very, very small light snowflakes in the air. It's supposed to be sunny and in the 60s later this week. So I have not officially put the Viper away. I might get it out 1 or 2 more times. I don't know if I'll film anything, but I'll at least get to drive it around before I park it and put it away for the whole winter. So Joshua Gibson says 12:45 here in Tennessee. Yeah, same time here. Same time here. And so what's weird is when you go into YouTube and it says, what time do you want to post a video? You put a time in, and it's what time zone do you want to use? So I click Detroit, which is Eastern time zone. And I click Detroit and 9 o'clock noon, and I put up my videos at 8 o'clock and 11. So I don't know if YouTube doesn't know about daylight savings time or what, but I set this to go live at 1 o'clock, and it says, okay, 20 minutes from now is noon. So I said, okay, I click noon, and it goes going live at 11 a.m. So I don't know. Joseph Klosterman, hello from Ann Arbor. Hello, my friend. Bad outcome there at the football game. Don't talk too much about that today, but that's what happens when you won't let 110,000 people sit in the big house. El Flaco Trayero, are Viper days over? We're not sure if they're over, but for film, probably. I'm probably not going to shoot any more film this year in the Viper. Cliff Hartle asks, of course, the question. Does anyone really know what time it is? Of course, that's a song by Chicago. Tony goes, greetings from Georgia. And Mindbend says, snow? Question mark, exclamation mark. Yeah, no, we actually have very, very, if you didn't look, you might not notice it. It's not going to stick. It's 36 degrees here right now. But the wind is howling like in a Jimi Hendrix song. So retired Butcher Boy, ready, set, go. And 2000 MCR says, rest in peace, 007. And yes, Sean Connery passed away yesterday morning, I believe. That's at least when the news broke. 90 years old, a fabulous actor, not just James Bond. My favorite character by him was Captain Ramius from A Hunt for Red October. Great movie. And, Sean Connery is one of these guys that you forget that he's in all these other movies as well. And he's one of those guys where, despite the fact he was so distinctive looking and distinctive sounding, he would do a role and the role would be him. You don't turn on Hunt for Red October and go, hey, there's James Bond. You go, hey, there's Captain Ramius, the Russian sub commander. So Chevy Mustang, snow squalls, and then sun in Bay City. Yet north of me, anywhere from Saginaw up to the Upper Peninsula, my understanding is much more snow, wind, and wet things on the road. So, NB, what's your favorite James Bond movie? Now, here's the problem. I have to admit, I actually like the later James Bond movies also. I really liked GoldenEye. I liked GoldenEye a lot. But I also really, really like the Daniel Craig movies. I think I understand the different nuances of the different guys. And Sean Connery is the ladies' man, James Bond. Daniel Craig is the flawed human James Bond. Quantum of Solace is fabulous. So, but what can I tell you? Ed G reminds us that Medicine Man was an awesome movie too. And that's the one I mentioned the last week or the week before. We were talking about just, I know what, somebody mentioned the phrase Medicine Man. And I said, by the way, it's also a movie starring Sean Connery and Lorraine Bracco. And it's a really good movie. And it kind of went under the radar because it's a little unusual. So Sarah Callahan says terrible snow in Commerce Township? Really? Now that's that's getting close to home. Austin Banesh, I'm late, but I'm here. Now, actually, we're early. We're early. So Fiona Fairchild, SNL, used to make fun of him. Well, a lot of people made fun of his speech because he had the heavy accent. And he tended to say his S is like SH. But, you know, when you're in the public eye and you're that famous, the fact that they're making fun of you doesn't necessarily mean that all that much. And if anything, it just means that everyone knows who you are. CJ LaChapelle says, sometime can you please make a video talking about the WWE getting away with how they treat their wrestlers while them being independent contractors? I was not aware of that at all. I do not follow Big Time Wrestling. The last time I followed Big Time Wrestling, we worried about the Sheik. And that was a long time ago, my friends. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but it doesn't surprise me. A lot of big businesses do that where they have the people who are making them all the money become independent contractors so that many of them can't actually, you know, cash in or get the protections they need. So Paul Lemke says, don't forget Roger Moore. Yeah, Roger Moore was probably my least favorite Bond, unless you're going to go for the one guy who made the one movie, who doesn't really count. D. Wood, A Bridge Too Far. That's right, A Bridge Too Far. Back when World War II films were just ensemble casts, they would literally, Hollywood would just hold a conference call and go, every single agent in Hollywood, call us right now. Your top 10 guys get in the movie. A Bridge Too Far had everyone in it. Everyone in it. And it's a good story. The story behind A Bridge Too Far is actually pretty good, but the movie is just kind of silly. I mean, it's just, you know, and some parts of it border on absurd, but Wonder Warthog. Hello, Steve. Hello, Wonder Warthog. I think that might be the first time I've said your name out loud. CJ LaChapelle, can I send you some info? Yeah, email me, anything like that. I'm unfamiliar with it. So if you've got something that I don't know much about, send it my way and I'll take a look at it. I said, I don't know much about Big Time Wrestling. I know it's a huge industry, but Justin Priolo, why can I see a bill but not read that it's the $100 bill? Well, I suspect the bill you're seeing is the $100 bill on Edge. On Edge. Michael Goodwin says that GoldenEye is considered the father of modern FPS games, iconic, right up there with Tetris, Mario, and Ocarina of Time, which I'm not familiar with that one. But yeah, I like GoldenEye a lot. I hate to say this, but many of the earlier James Bond films didn't make much sense to me, meaning that you're watching it going, well, how did he know that? Why is he going there? Like, I think there were just big gaps in the plot. They just assumed you'd go, he's a secret agent. He must know what he's doing. But, you know, yeah, Fred Crotto, Operation Market Garden was the nickname for the Allied operation that became the movie A Bridge Too Far. Brian Ekdahl arrived. Good day, Steve. Good day, Brian. Yeah, we started early. We'll still be here till whatever time it is that we'll be done at. So Duncan Campbell. Hello from Melbourne. I was watching The Hunt for Red October, but paused it for this. I watched that movie again literally 10 days ago. I watched it. If I haven't seen it in a month or two, I'll watch it again. It's such a perfect movie. It's got a couple minor issues, but you know something? It's the plot's good, the story's good, the pacing of it is perfect. The second you think a scene might be dragging on too long, boom, something else happens. And it's just put together so well. They don't make movies like that anymore, at least not very often. Brian Ekdahl, how come states don't charge players tax for professional ball players? You mean income tax? You're talking about like in other words, if a baseball player comes to your town and plays a game there as a visiting player? Yeah, I'd have to imagine that they just basically assume that you earn the money where you live. But Mindbend, comments on the Gatorade. And yeah, I got Gatorade right here. When you see me reaching with my right hand over here for something, I'm usually just shaking this, and I go, not yet. I put it back. Teddy B, my favorite Bond movie was Diamonds Are Forever. It's a good one. Tony from England says The Longest Day was a fantastic film with so many famous actors. It's been a while since I've seen that one. It's been a while. Duncan Campbell, I hope you've read the book. I've not read the book, Hunt for Red October. I've not read it. I've not read many of those books. I've seen many of those movies, but I just haven't. Betty Boop says Das Boot is a great movie too, and it is. And I believe I'm correct. If I've got any Germans in the audience, Americans say Das Boot, but I believe the O in German is a long O, Das Boot. And it's the World War II movie about German U-boats. And it is shot so well, and amazingly, even in the ones where they released it in English language, they've overdubbed it so well that you almost don't even notice these guys are speaking German, and it was overdubbed into English. But I remember seeing that at the theater when it first came out and going, wow, somebody finally made an accurate war movie, especially about being in a U-boat, which was a real iffy proposition. If you were in the German military, the odds of you surviving the war were lowest if you were on board a U-boat. D. Wood, the worst ensemble movie, in my opinion, was Battle of the Bulge. There were so many bad movies right around that time. I'm trying to remember the one I saw. I snapped a screen grab of it. I jokingly put it up on Facebook, I think, because they show some German officers driving around in a convertible Mercedes in the middle of the wintertime. And every single movie made in Hollywood that has Germans in it, if the car is a convertible, the top is down. In the snow, in the rain, they don't care. It's like the Germans didn't know the top would go up. And don't get me wrong, if I was an officer in an army and they gave me a convertible Mercedes to drive around in, I'd be tempted to put the top down too, but not in the rain or the wind, the snow, you know? So Jim Adams doesn't like the time change. Daylight savings time. I actually like it, but Dixie Champagne says, yep, B-O-O-T in German is pronounced boat. And I know a couple people who speak German fluently, and I've asked them that before. But, you know, I say something on here and people correct me. Scotty Beam, did you have any trick-or-treaters? Zero, none. So I actually bought 2 bags of the fun size Snickers bars because I got to buy what I like, right? Because in case there's any left over. Had none, 0. And I actually had my porch light on. So where my house is, there aren't a lot of houses close by. And my neighbors on both sides and across the street on both sides, none of them have children. So there's not many kids in the area, I guess. Dan Busey, the Das Boat Director's Cut DVD is awesome. I think I've got it. Justin Priolo, are you going to watch the Vikings beat up the Packers? No, I don't watch much NFL, although I got to tell you, I was ripping on the Lions mercilessly, including last Sunday. Went inside and turned on the TV. This is like right out of a bad sitcom. I turned on the TV with 65 seconds in the game or something like that. And the other side scored a touchdown. So they were up by 5 or 6 points, whatever it was. They were up. The Lions get the ball back with 61 or 63 seconds on the clock. They drive all the way down and they score. And it's insane. And you know, the NFL has got different rules on the clock management compared to, like, say, the Big Ten or NCAA. So, for instance, when you get a first down, they don't stop the clock. So, you know, Matt Stafford wings the ball 40 yards. Guy catches it, but doesn't get out of bounds. The clock's not stopped. So the referee sets the ball and the clock starts again. So they got to run down there, grab the ball and spike it to stop the clock. And I mean, it happened at least twice, you know, and the fact that they did this and they scored the touchdown as time zeroed out, it was impressive. And somebody on here sent me a note, and I forgot where they contacted me, but somebody sent me a note and said, hey, Steve, did you catch the end of that game? They won. You know something? They did. And I'll admit, in that 63-second or whatever it was closing of the game, I was rooting for the Lions. First time I've rooted for them in a long time. Bob Summers, what's the title of the Bismarck book and the author, please? It's called Battleship Bismarck. Battleship Bismarck. And I believe it's out of print now. You have to give me a second to remember the guy's name. It's got a von in his name. It'll come to me in a second. But Battleship Bismarck, and it's put out by one of those companies that puts out all the World War II books. It's originally written in German and then translated into English. So, James Reese, we had no trick-or-treaters either. Yeah, I suspect that a lot of that's COVID. Just people just say no. Steve from Rafe, you wear a different T-shirt in each of your videos. How long does it take for each costume change? Not long, because the T-shirts are right there. I've got them right behind the camera, and I literally just stand up, take one off, put one on. It's going to drive me crazy if I don't get the name of the author for the Bismarck book. So, Battleship Bismarck. Von Mullenheim. See, as soon as I hit send or enter, the guy's name is von Mullenheim, Mullenheim, I believe. He was the highest ranking survivor off the Bismarck, and it's a wonderful book. Just a first person account of somebody who was there, and he was on board the ship from before it was actually launched. Wild Bill 57 points out Iron Coffins by Herbert Werner and that is an incredible World War II German submarine book. One of the earliest ones I ever actually read. And Oregon Expat says, the book's by Burkhard Baron von Mullenheim Reckberg. And that is it. And that Jeff also points it out. So thanks for looking it up, guys. Iron Coffins by Herbert Werner is another fabulous book if you're into World War II histories. A first-person account. That was a guy who served on a couple different U-boats. He was an officer on board one, and then he was the commander of the last one. And he's on board near the end where they are just spending their entire times like hiding underwater, trying not to get sunk. So it's pretty amazing. Jason Johnson reminds us of K-19 Widowmaker, and that's another very, very good submarine movie. It tells a story about the Russian submarine that had a nuclear accident on board, and a lot of guys got injured and killed. And for a long time, it was a state secret of the USSR. But yeah, it was a tragedy. Dixie Champagne points out that ever since the pandemic, families have been walking together around the neighborhood, except for yesterday. But, I guess the point is, if you're not going to be walking up and knocking on doors, why go out and walk around? So, Ian Haluziak, how was your Halloween? It was pretty good. I just hung around the house, and then, like I said, no one showed up. David Person says K-19 is pretty accurate. I've heard that it was. Geek Moto 13, K-19 had a multitude of issues that caused more than a few problems. Well, I can tell you that one of the things, I actually have a book on engineering disasters. I forgot what it's called, but I've got it. I just saw it the other day. And most of the big engineering disasters you hear about, whether it's Chernobyl or a building collapse or something, it's never just one thing that caused it. It's usually several things that happen, because most of these systems are designed to be safe. But if a couple things go wrong, then all bets go off. And so, like, what was the other submarine? It was the Kursk, the Russian sub that sank a while back, not too long ago, but more recently than that. And that's another one that sank. And probably a whole bunch of things went wrong, so that's what happens. Jim Adams, U-571 seems so far-fetched, but I heard the story was true. I think it was inspired by a true story. I suspect it was kind of inspired by the U-505. I could be wrong, but U-571 is silly. It's just a silly movie. I watched it, I'm like, that's just stupid. Yeah, Geek Moto 13 says, I think it was the Kursk. Ian Lujak sent Halloween pics to your email. Check it out when you can. Theoretically, I could check them out right now. Question is, are they? Oh, check it out, the Halloween Jeep. Very nice. Wild Bill 57, Iron Coffins, you start rooting for them until you understand that they are the enemy. I found copies of it and have given it to World War II fanatics. Yeah, no, it's a very good book. And by the way, I just spilled Gatorade on my towel. I've had people ask me about how many German books I read. They go, "You read so many German war books." I read war books by people from every side. I've read books about Americans, Germans, Canadians. I read a book about a Canadian the other day, and I'm not rooting for any of them. I'm just trying to learn about the history. And one of the interesting things, though, is the point you make, is that when you're reading a book and it's about the enemy's perspective and you're relating to it, you understand we're not actually that different. Okay? There's actually something to be learned from that. And so one of the big problems, and I hate to get so preachy 5 minutes into the show, or 20 for those of you who've been here the whole time. One of the problems in our world is when we view other people as different from us. Okay? And one of the things that actually makes the world get along better is when you realize that, hey, we're all people. We all have the same hopes and dreams. I believe John F. Kennedy may have even done a speech on that topic. But the point is that when you're reading a war book and some guy's describing what it's like to be living on the edge of danger where you could die any minute now, and you realize how scary that is, and you're like, whoa, but he's the other guy, other side, so it's important. Jim Adams, so they didn't shoot bodies out of the torpedo tubes of U-505. Well, no, but you know what's really funny? That's one of those Hollywood things, and I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere somebody did actually try to dump garbage out of a submarine that was submerged to convince people that it had sunk. But there's a bunch of bad mechanics that goes into misunderstanding how things work and then having Hollywood make things wrong. And so, for instance, in every war movie you ever see, you'll see torpedoes coming at a boat and you'll see the bubbles behind them. And World War II torpedoes didn't do that. They had counter-rotating propellers that pushed the water, but they weren't spraying out aerosol behind them. And so it's just a typical example that they get those kinds of things wrong. D. Wood's Panzer Commander by Hans von Luck was another good book along those lines. Dude, I read that book not too long ago, and I actually enjoyed it so much. I lent it to a brother of mine, and I think it made the rounds. 3 or 4 of my brothers read it. But Panzer Commander Hans von Luck was a very, very high-ranking German, I believe he was a general by the end of the war, or a high-ranking like colonel or something. But he was in the front lines of several major engagements, I believe on the Eastern Front, and then later on in Normandy and so on. And when the war was over and he was in a prisoner of war camp, they were debriefing all of the people. And one of the things the Americans did after the war, and I've talked about this before, is they interviewed and interrogated a lot of the commanders and officers of the other side just to try to make note of what they could, learn from it for the next war, if there was a next war. And when they encountered Luck and Hans von Luck, and they realized who he was, they actually summoned him and brought him in. And a guy said, "Excuse me, sir, are you?" And he asked him about what unit he'd been attached to and was commanding on a certain date. And Luck goes, "Yeah, that was me." And the guy goes, "We were the ones on the other side." And there's one particular battle, and I believe it was involving a bridge, possibly the Pegasus Bridge, but I could be wrong on that. And the guy actually stood up and shook his hand. He goes, I want to congratulate you. You guys fought very, very well. We also fought very honorably. And they sat down, they talked. And somewhere after that, he was actually invited to lecture, I believe it's Sandhurst, which is the British military academy. And talking there, somebody said, you got to write these stories down. You got to write this stuff up. And so he actually wrote a book called Panzer Commander, and it's a very, very good book. It came out later, I'm guessing in the 80s or 90s, but it was a very, very, very good book. Matthew Sjostrom points out that the German panzers would have been dwarfed by the hypothetical Ratta the Germans had designed. Yeah, the Germans designed a couple very, very big tanks. I think they also had one called the Mouse, which was bigger than the Tiger, but smaller than that land battleship. But those are just pipe dreams. But yeah. Duncan Campbell, have you read Pegasus Bridge? No. I've read a few books by Ambrose. And to me, later on in his career, those books aren't quite as good as his earlier ones. But David Persons is talking about, I believe, K-19, where the crew, to find a solution to avoid a nuclear meltdown, sacrificed their own lives, and the engineering crew had to jerry-rig a secondary coolant system, which kept the reactor from going full meltdown, and 22 died. Wow. CJ LaChapelle says, I just sent you the email about the WWE stuff. Looking forward to hearing you talk about it. I'll take a look. Jimmy B, if you can recommend for a World War II history beginner, what would you read? That's a tough one. I'd have to think about it because you'd want something more overview, right? And I've read so many books over the years. I'm not sure, actually. I would recommend the World at War documentary series by the BBC. It was a very, very comprehensive, huge, and expensive to make documentary about World War II. And it's narrated by Sir Laurence Olivier. And they actually tracked down and interviewed people on both sides, very, very important people on both sides. And it's an amazing, amazing documentary. It does a very good job of explaining, in documentary form, what the war is all about. Jason Johnson, the Germans had such cool names for weapons. Still glad they lost. Yeah, they did. They had some pretty cool names. The Germans had a slightly different approach in some respects to how they built their weapons. So that, for instance, the German Tiger tank was a really, really cool army tank. Technically quite complicated, very expensive to build. They're prone to needing mechanical work, to put it nicely. But if you asked a man in 1945, a tank guy, I'm going to put you in a tank out in a field, and you can choose. Do you want to be in the Sherman or the Tiger or the T-34? And 9 out of 10 would jump to say, I want to be in the Tiger. And somebody's bound to go, I'll take the T-34 just for giggles. But and they had some pretty technologically advanced stuff. So David Persons' Panzer Commander was published in 1989. See, I knew it was fairly late for a World War II book. Yeah, Oregon expat points out that those huge tanks like the Rat wouldn't have been able to move. And the biggest problems with those tanks that size is, remember, tanks don't just fight tanks. You discover that you can take out an army tank with an airplane. That's what A-10 Warthogs do all day long right now. And so, like, for instance, the Germans had Stukas with, guns underneath the wings. And they'd fly over a battlefield and come up behind an army tank and pop it in the back. So just because your tank can outshoot another tank doesn't mean you're going to win that battle. And so if you have an army tank that's that big, how do you get it someplace? It won't fit on a train car. It can't cross a bridge, So that's the problem with that. So Dan Busey read Winston Churchill's 6-volume World War II memoir. Got through it, but it took a while. I have to imagine that if Winston Churchill wrote the way he spoke, it's probably entertaining but dense. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what else to say. Idris Taylor says the World at War was from Thames Television, but wasn't the BBC behind the production? I remember reading something about that. That the BBC was the one who oversaw it or produced or something. I don't know. Jim Adams wasn't the V1 buzz bomb named by the Brits. Oh, yeah. The Germans had a much longer name as the Vergeltungswaffen, the Vengeance Weapon 1, and the V2 is the Vergeltungswaffen 2. Fred Corrado, don't forget the U.S.'s Pershing army tank. Yeah, I think a lot of guys who were in World War II don't really care to think about that one too much. C.W. Niehaus says the Kursk fell victim to a fire and consequent explosion in the torpedo room due to leaking hydrogen peroxide. Really? I did not know that. Thames TV is ITV, according to David or D. Wood. So I'm going to check one of my sources there. See, The World at War is the groundbreaking 26-part documentary series narrated by Laurence Olivier about the deadliest conflict in history. That is World War II. It doesn't have a whole lot here. Well, it did originate in the United Kingdom. I think we knew that already. So, Jay Felix checking in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Jason Johnson loved the A-10. Yeah, the A-10 was cool because they basically said, hey, look, we want to get this big Gatling gun in the air. What do? Build an airframe around it, a couple of jet engines out back. There you go. Mark S. Many AAF planes took out German tanks with cannons and rockets. Yeah, I mean, there were actually Tiger tanks that got destroyed in carpet bombing raids too. You know, I mean, you can be in a tank that weighs 60 tons or whatever it is, and carpet bombers, you know, B-17s go overhead, just, you know, and doesn't matter. So, Betty Boops is Saving Private Ryan. The sound of the tigers and rumble and shaking rubble felt like you were there. And I'm just correcting you on the tank because that was a tiger. But yeah, no, we had a discussion about this a while back, and several people complained about Saving Private Ryan, saying that the movie was inaccurate. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, you know, these guys made stupid mistakes. And it's like, well, yeah, but if people in movies never made mistakes, there'd be no drama. The human element in a movie is what makes it work. But the technical aspects of Saving Private Ryan, that is how they presented the weapons, the equipment, and all of that was extremely accurate. And the Tiger tank in the final battle scene that's coming up over that berm and is coming towards those guys, and the camera is shaking. I mean, that is what a Tiger tank would look like if you were that close to it. I mean, that's what it looks like. And I often tell people this, but there's a scene where they come up at the base of the radar embankment. It looks like a drive-in movie theater earlier in the movie. And there's two guys operating an MG-42, a German heavy machine gun. And Tom Hanks tells his guys, he goes, look, we're going to start shooting at him. Because when they go to change the barrel out, that's when we're going to attack. And that's actually a true thing, that these guns got so hot that the barrels would get hot. They'd have to change the barrel out. They actually had replaceable barrels. And when they finally get up there and there's no more shooting, you can hear the gun barrels crackling. And that's the kind of detail that they put into that movie that made it so ridiculously accurate compared to Battle of the Bulge or A Bridge Too Far or his other ones who, you know, quick, get us some army tanks. Next thing you know, they're using like Korean War tanks in France, which, So, yeah, Oregon expat points out that, Steve, the way the Germans name things is just hilarious. What we call a tool is in German a Werkzeuge, which is literally a work thing. An aircraft is a Flugzeug, which is a flying thing. And a car is a Fahrzeug, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, no, and it's kind of funny if you look at some of the longer words that get abbreviated down. So like a Mark IV Army tank is a PZKPF, Roman numeral 4. And the PZ, it's Panzer Kampfwagen. And Panzer's armor, Kampf is work, right? Work. And wagon is wagon. Or something to that effect. And so, but they have these big long words and they crunch them down for the abbreviations, and that's how that works. Willie Harrell points out it was a movie. They can't get everything done right and show you the details. No, that's the point. And People in real life make mistakes. And I know people who watch a movie and they go, why do you do that? That was stupid. Well, ask yourself how good the movie would be if the guy didn't make that mistake. You know, half the time it's those mistakes that humans make. Oregon expat says an MG42 is not a heavy machine gun. By whose definition? Oh, boy. I guess definitely the question is, how do you define it? Heavy versus other. So I know that in many of the strategy games, it's considered a heavy machine gun. Camp war. Okay, that you're right. There you go. Sorry. And Gvok points out it's actually struggle, because the book written by Hitler, Mein Kampf, my struggle, my fight, something like that. It had a really high rate of fire. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. D. McGee says hello. Hello. CJ LaChapelle. Yeah. Unfortunately, if we discuss that too much, my videos get demonetized. So, sense of style. What kind of tank was Brad Pitt driving in Fury? I believe that was a Sherman Firefly, which was an upgunned Sherman. Although I could be wrong about the Firefly. I always get it confused because I know that the Sherman came from America originally with a fairly small gun compared to the stuff we were shooting at. And the main gun, and it got upgunned somewhere down the road. And I know that the British also had upgunned it very, very quickly. They got it, and they're like, hey, look, we got a better gun. And they put in one of their pounder guns. I forgot how many pounds it was, because they measure guns by how many pounds versus the millimeters of the diameter of the gun. So Fred Corrado says it was a Sherman, but it has a 76 millimeter high velocity gun. Yeah, and the Firefly was the British upgunned version with a 17 pounder. And I forgot, was there a nickname though for the American Sherman that had the 76 gun in it? And Dan Busey says, yes, Firefly is correct. So there you go. The Fury is in the Bovington Tank Museum, D. McGee. If that's true, I wonder how long it's been there. It's been a while since I was there, but that's a wonderful museum. I've mentioned it before. I've actually talked to people in America going, hey, guys, let's go to England to visit the tank museum. And I don't know how many people actually do that, but that's what, you know. James Reese asked me yesterday, was there going to be a live show? And I said, yes, on Sunday, like always. Fred Corrado says the 76 millimeter was able to go through the Tiger's armor. Yeah, from what distance? Yeah, and Jared Draper says, so is the Tiger from the movie. Yeah, because the Tiger in the movie, I believe, was the Tiger from the Bovington Tank Museum, meaning that they actually borrowed the tank, brought it to France. Didn't they shoot that portions of that in France? But they shot portions of it on mainland Europe, and I believe they brought the Tiger over for some of those movie shots. So, Ram 50 V8s is one of the most lethal tracked weapons the Germans had was the Stug 3. And one of the interesting things about this, and I don't want to get too heavily into World War II tanks and so on, but the Germans had their tanks numbered. There's a Mark I, a Mark II, a Mark III, a Mark IV. And then the Mark V was nicknamed the Panther. The Mark VI was nicknamed the Tiger. Then, of course, there's the Tiger, the King Tiger, the Royal Tiger. And of the 3, 4, 5, and 6, they also came without turrets. And they called them JAG, J-A-G, which I think is short for hunting. They called them like a hunting tiger or a hunting panther or a hunting Mark IV or hunting Mark III. And so the Stug 3 and the 4 were the basic parts of the Army tank with a gun on top, but without the moving turret, which saved a ton of weight and a ton of mechanical engineering building time. I actually just read a story about a guy who served on a couple Mark IV, hunting Mark IVs. And it's interesting because if they ran up against a tank out in the open, they were in trouble. A bunch of them in with tanks. They were, amazing things they could do. So. Joel Kirschman, on my first trip to London, my first excursion was to the Farnborough Air Show. It was worth it just to see the Avro Vulcan. Also the RAF Museum in London. I went there, and they've got a ton of cool stuff. I would strongly urge anybody who enjoys any portion of this conversation, if you ever get to England, the RAF Museum in London and the Bovington Tank Museum out near Bournemouth, which I can never say right, apparently. Jason Johnson, apparently there's a group here that would love to talk about World War II. Mr. Multi-Fuel. Oh. Matthew Shostam said he read about the British inventing a gun that fired square bullets. What advantage would that have at all? Or would it have any? Or maybe that's why they don't use them. Mark Heil says, I visited an awesome World War II museum just outside of Normandy a few years ago with a Sherman tank in the parking lot. I believe I saw either that museum or the one nearby where the mulberries are, because if you travel the coast of Normandy, number one, you have to visit the American cemetery, the Allied cemetery at Normandy. You just have to visit there. You can go walk the beach. You can walk Omaha Beach. I've been there, and I've done a lot of cool stuff in my life. And if you said, Steve, list the top 5 things you've done or 5 places you've been in your life that you would not give up those experiences for anything, walking on Omaha Beach is possibly the number 1, but it'll be in the top 3. And I don't know what the other 2 would be. It's that moving of an experience. And so traveled all around that area for a full day. And there's all kinds of World War II stuff there. And there's a museum for the mulberries, which were the temporary harbors that we built, the big docks that we built. And many of those things are still out in the water. And when I was there, there was a gun, like an anti-tank gun in the parking lot of the building I was at. And in the background, there's a Sherman up on a bluff, just parked, just overlooking the sea. Very, very cool. So, Tommy Barrios, howdy from Cypress, Texas. Howdy from Texas, my friend. Mark Heil, totally agree on Omaha Beach. Yeah, and I don't know. Fred Crotto Jr., my great uncle, is buried there. He was a belly turret gunner in a B-17. Wow. I've also flown in a B-17 bomber, which I think I saw fly overhead about 2 weeks ago. Because there was there's a B-17 bomber that flies out of Ypsilanti, Willow Run. And it used to be called the Yankee Air Museum, and the bomber was nicknamed the Yankee Lady. And I got a chance to fly on it. It's very, very cool. But of course, the bomber, had a pilot and a co-pilot, and then it had a bombardier up front, and then a bunch of gunners, because there's guns all over this thing. So they called the Flying Fortress. And one guy got to be swivel around all these different ways. But the guy was inside this thing, and you had to be small to do it. They would not have a guy 6 feet tall do it. They'd find a shorter guy, say, you get in there. And it caused problems because the thing was hydraulic. And so if the plane got shot up, which they got shot up quite a bit, if it got shot up in the wrong way and they lost their hydraulics, they'd have a hard time, and it might be impossible, to swivel that thing in the correct direction for the guy to get out of it. And that's a problem, because if you lost your hydraulics, you also might not be able to get your landing gear down. And so there were actually guys who did not make it back alive because the hydraulics in the plane were shot out and they couldn't land with their landing gear. So Fred Corrado says that His uncle was shot down over Berlin, May 24th, 1944. Wow. Great uncle buried there. Yeah. And it's one of those things. You go there and you walk in, and there's a big parking lot, and there's a greeting center. And then there's this, I don't know what you call it, but it's a monument of sorts that's a curved marble thing with a area, and you can walk around. It's very, very, very peaceful. And then you walk past it, and then you see what they show you in Saving Private Ryan or any of the photographs you've seen. It's just a sea of headstones as far as the eye can see. And perfect rows, perfectly spaced. And there are guys, volunteers, walking around quietly, respectfully, who are just standing there. And if you walk up to one and say, "Excuse me, I need help," they'll help you. And they know the cemetery very, very well. They can get you to any section you want to go to. They can answer questions for you, or they can just stand there. And if you want to go there and spend some solemn moments by yourself, knock yourself out. If you want someone to show you around, ask. And it's just amazing. The opening scene of Saving Private Ryan is the family walking along that path. There's a wall on one side and there's trees leaning over. You can't really tell from the angle of the shot, but that's actually at one edge of the cemetery. And if you walk to that wall and look down, you're looking right down the bluff at Omaha Beach. It's right there. It's right there. And it's one of those things where I remember walking going, this is a scene from the movie. I recognize this from the movie. And I got pictures of it, and it's right from the movie. And so it's crazy. So C.W. Nihao says, if anyone else is fascinated with submarines like I am, there are a few documentaries about the Kursk on YouTube. I'll have to take a look at that. I was unaware of that. I remember hearing about when it happened, but not much more beyond that. Fred Corrado Jr., my great uncle's name was Peter Corrado. Jared Draper, my uncle, was shot out of 3 tanks during Vietnam, and he survived. Did he survive? Because that's guys get shot out of airplanes, I think, more often than people who survive tank attacks. Problem with Army tanks is they get hit just wrong. They doesn't end well. Sense of style, I flew in the aluminum overcast B-17 in Torrance, California, 2013. The tail gunner and belly gunner's areas were off limits. Yeah, the aluminum overcast, I've got a shirt for it back here. Somebody sent that in to me, and I thank you very much for doing that. Greatest name ever for an airplane. The aluminum overcast. And I got to crawl around the Yankee Lady while I was in the air. I actually climbed down into the chin where the bombardier sat. And I sat there and just watched the terrain go by, farm country west of Ypsilanti at about 3,000 feet. And it was just amazing to sit there and watch it and go, like, what that must have been like to do that back then. So Lisa Chrétien, I spent a couple of days on the beaches of Normandy, the most powerful moving experience for me as well. It's good to hear. I'm a historian. I've got a degree in history, and I've written history books, and I've taught history. And I, get asked occasionally, what do historians do? And I think the shortest definition of what historians do is we work to make sure that people don't forget the past. It's my goal to make sure that certain parts of the past aren't forgotten. And if I can help anybody remember anything, I've done my job. David Persons, I was amazed at how tight the inside of the B-17s were. No, that's the thing. It's all a matter of scale. So we're so used to seeing a B-17 bomber compared to, like, say, a P-51 Mustang. You go, wow, what a gigantic airplane. And then you get inside a B-17, you're like, wow, it's actually kind of cramped in here. It was. And to climb down underneath the dashboard to get up in the chin where the bombardier sat, I barely squeezed through. I almost got claustrophobic in there. I mean, it was a tight fit. It was a tight fit. So that's interesting you raised that point because it struck me too. Jay Vogt says the opening and closing scenes in Saving Private Ryan always make my eyes leak. Yeah, it's a very interesting. And earlier I mentioned about one of the points of war movies or books, if they're told correctly, is to get you to think about think about how human we all are. Didn't Ernest Hemingway do something about that also? And so that's one of the points of Saving Private Ryan. And it's spelled out right in the movie. You know, on the one hand, there's people killing each other, but we've got a mission to go save one guy. That guy suddenly becomes important, even if all kinds of other people have got to die. And at some point, you ask yourself, well, why? What makes him so special? And it all makes sense on one level, but, you know, so Jason Johnson, you wear a B-17. Jim Adams, my uncle Werner had his B-17 shot down over Anklam in northern Germany. Good old fighting Pappy. Yeah, you know, I've mentioned before for the guys and gals in the audience that in the Detroit area, there used to be a weatherman named Sonny Elliott. And anybody from Detroit between 1960 and now, well, maybe 10 years ago, would know who Sonny Elliott was. Sonny Elliott was a newscaster, a weather guy back in the day when they still did weather on a chalkboard, okay? And then he was all the way up until the 90s. I think he was still on the radio. Sonny Elliott was actually on board a bomber. It wasn't a B-17. I think it was something else, but he was on board a bomber. World War II, got shot down, spent time in a prisoner of war camp. When the war ended, came back to Michigan and somehow got himself into TV weather. But, you know, there's a lot of these guys who, if they didn't come out and tell you, you'd never know. And then you think about what kind of a life experience it must have been. And, you know, I was watching something not too long ago where some guys were bailing out of an airplane. It was a remake of Midway. They remade Midway. The remake's not that bad. But in the movie, the guys who did Doolittle's Raid bail out of their airplane in the dark. And just thinking about jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. And by the way, the parachutes back then weren't as good as the ones they've got now. Jumping out of an airplane with a parachute in the dark, not knowing what you're going to land, where you're going to land. You could land in water. You could land in a tree. You could land on the side of a mountain. You don't know, you know. So Wade Pittenger, Steve, do you go snowmobiling? I never have. I have to admit that's one of the strange things in Michigan. I've never known anybody who owned a snowmobile. I've been on personal watercraft. I've been on boats. I've never been on a snowmobile. I hate to admit that that's true, but it is. Nevada Kapuka, one of my first memories was swimming in the channel at the landing beaches back in 1970. Bunkers on the cliffs, quite a memory. That's one of the other things I should have mentioned. I wrote an article for Opposite Lock a while back about walking on D-Day on Normandy Beach. And among the things that are there still are reinforced concrete bunkers that the Germans built preceding the invasion. And many of them are still there. And the earth is slowly swallowing them up. But you can still climb around inside some of them. And I mean, it was one of those things, you know, you can read about it, you look at pictures, but to actually walk up to reinforced concrete that's like this thick, and there's a hole this big blown in it by a big gun, and you can see the reinforced, you know, the iron that's in there, the rebar that's in there, and just imagining what it'd be like either to be inside that, watching out, or the people on the other side who are trying to dismantle that concrete. There's a lot of drama going on there too. So Galen Ursley, need to come down to the Air Force Museum. I'll give you a tour. Which one? Are we talking about the one in Ohio? I've been there. Doug Jones, a snowmobile is a winter motorcycle. Wright Patterson, I assume, is the one in Ohio. Jason Johnson, Germans had those anti-aircraft bunkers. Well, they also had the U-boat pens, which had massive reinforced concrete steel reinforced, you know, the iron reinforced concrete roofs. So Jimmy L, Didn't Jimmy Stewart, the actor, fly B-17 during the war? He might have. I seem to recall that, but I don't know that I've read much about it. Tommy Barrios, if you lived in the Upper Peninsula, you'd own at least 2 snowmobiles. Oh, I know people live in the UP who ride snowmobiles like to the store and back. And there are communities where they actually plow the roads out to the shoulders, and they plow them differently on the shoulders, specifically to allow snowmobilers to go back and forth. Mindbend, I want to walk on Normandy. I've watched so many D-Day movies and docs. That's actually one of the things I urge people to do. I know people who say, Steve, why should I travel? I've had people say that. I've been to London 3 times, been to Paris twice. I've had people say, so what? So what? If you ever watch movies set in London, after you visited London, you recognize the landmarks, and it makes it a whole different experience. It does. It changes the way the movie looks to you. And it's kind of like, I know people who live in America have never been to New York City. Well, go there one time. Just know where all the various landmarks are. So. Dave G1H crawled around a B-17 about 50 years ago as a refitted fire drop aircraft. Yeah, the Yankee lady at the Yankee Air Museum, a B-17, never saw combat. It was basically coming off the assembly line as the war ended. And it got sold and was being used to do firefighting. And then it got retired and was about to get scrapped, literally scrapped for its aluminum value. James Reese, London cabbies are the best in the world. That's actually probably true. And many people don't know this, but I know at least at one point in time, to become a cabbie in London, you had to take a test and actually know things. And if you've ever taken a taxi in New York City, all bets are off. You might get a driver who doesn't speak English, who doesn't know what city he's in. And other than understanding how the grid works, like 7th and 42nd to get up to 9th and 44th, beyond that, wouldn't know anything. So it's a different experience. The taxis are cleaner, and the experience is much, much nicer. Probably a little more expensive, I'd have to guess, but what are you gonna do? Mindbend says, hey, the show is almost done because the Gatorade's almost gone. Nah, that's not quite right. We'll be around for a little bit longer. I did not bring a second bottle today. It's so cold outside. So, NB, did you ever take your Deuce off-road? My Deuce and M35 Army truck. Off-road, sort of. I never took it any place terribly crazy. But I took it down a bunch of logging roads in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I took it places that I could never have taken a typical four-wheel drive vehicle. The ground clearance on that thing was just humongous. And there's a section of road that, for the people who know the Upper Peninsula, if you're coming from, say, Marquette, and you come across and you go up to Lance, there's a way to cut diagonally through there. And I forgot the name of the town that's back there. It might be Herman. But there's a road that cuts through, and portions of it are not that good. And one year I brought my Army truck up north, and I decided to come back that way. And I was tooling along at fairly low speeds, and I come around a curve, and there's water all the way across the road, literally from one side to the other. And I don't know if it's this deep or this deep or a little, I don't know. I hadn't driven this road before my entire life. So I remember I got out and I walked and I was looking around. I'm looking around. I go, well, okay, as long as I keep the engine running, I've got so much ground clearance that I can't possibly put the engine underwater. I'm probably okay. I go walking back to my truck and I realized that all the wheels on the one side had just sunk into the shoulder of the road. And I'm like, oh boy. But the good news is that thing was all-wheel drive if you engaged the front axle. And so I put it in, engaged the front axle. I put it in the creeper low and just pulled off the edge of the shoulder that I sunk into and drove along the side. And it tipped a little bit, but not that bad. and I made it out the other side. I have no idea how deep it was in the middle, but it was raining and ugly, and I don't want to. I mean, I could have gotten out and taken a stick like you check the gas tanks at a gas station with, and check to see how deep it was, but I didn't. Oh boy. David Beeler, did your 6x have a snorkel? No, it did not. Chevy Mustang, do you shovel your snow, use a snowblower, or hire someone? I actually got a guy. He has a tractor with a snow thrower in the front of it. And when I first got here, he came over and introduced himself, and he goes, "I'll mow your lawn, I'll do your driveway. Just forget about him." And he does both great. So, but it's I can tell he enjoys using his toys, and so he's got the big old tractor. So, crazy neighbor. There's always someone finding Ben, but where's the Canadian money? The Canadian money actually got moved, and I keep saying I'm going to overhaul the set behind me, and I moved some stuff around for something else I was working on, and I just didn't put it back where it belongs. I will one of these days. David Person says Jimmy Stewart flew B-17Cs, B-24s, B-25s, and even tested early jet bombers, and he retired as a brigadier general. Wow. American hero. Tiger Stripes, a guy. I always like to say I love snow, but I've never shoveled it. Oh, I've shoveled it. I just don't enjoy shoveling it. I remember a couple of years ago, I remember one day, a really, really bad snowstorm, and I had to get out. And so I actually got out the snow shovel, and I dug out, and it wasn't that. I mean, it was probably 10 feet one way and 6 or 7 feet the other way, but it was deep. And I'm like, this is stupid. This is what teenage kids are for. Throw money at them. Donald Whittemore, thank you, sir, for reminding me. What is the Zazzle balance? The Zazzle balance. For those of you who don't know, you can go online to Zazzle.com, and at Zazzle, you can order this shirt or this mug. I have it set to where you can buy them so cheaply that I make less than $1 per item. Okay? So if you buy that mug, I think I make like 30 cents or 50 cents. And if you buy the t-shirt, I make like 60 cents. So I put that online about a year ago, and I don't get paid till I make $100. And I've said specifically, I am not doing this to make money. I'm not going to make money off the shirts and the mugs. So if you want to order a shirt or a mug, the money that I get, I will take and give to charity. And I said, as soon as I get a check in, I'll bring it in one of the Sunday Lives, and we'll decide who to send it to. And I went and looked, and I had $98.61. And it was there for the longest time, $98. So 2 weekends ago, I said during the live stream, please, I need you guys. I need $1.50 to put me over $100. Well, apparently enough people did it, because now I am up to $104.70. So that money hasn't cleared yet. They only give you the money 30 days after it clears. So somewhere down the road, I'm going to get a check for $107 or whatever that was. And sorry. I will bring the check in. I will show it to you. We will discuss who to send it to. And I would prefer if somebody came in with a charity that they have some connection with, and preferably, I don't know, animals are nice, right? So we'll see. But Tri-Fingers, was your Peloton model part of the recall? No. Early Peloton bikes, the exercise bikes that Peloton sells that you then use the program with, issued a recall recently, but it was for the older models. And my Peloton is literally only 1 year old. In fact, it's almost exactly 8-year-old. It's like a year and a week right now. This morning, I did my 445th ride. 445 rides since I got it. So, Mind Bend suggests that he could be a charity, the Mind Bend Insanity Fund. G. Vogt, a veteran's cause would be best. I'd consider that also. So I can't do it as a contest because unfortunately, if I make it a contest, then I got to do all these stupid rules and stuff. So we'll have a little discussion. We'll just pick somebody, and for whatever what did I say it was? $104.70. But I don't want to belittle it because it's actual money that could help somebody. So. Scott Winters is still discussing the MG34 and MG42 being universal machine guns. With a tripod, it's like a heavy, and on a bipod, it's a light. See Ian on Forgotten Weapons. Okay. Mark Heil suggests viewers could match the donation. They could, but I'm not going to get into a whole thing. D. McGee, is there a low-flying owl charity? Now, see, that's something I could get behind. There probably is some group of people down there in Florida where the low-flying owl sign is from who will look after those birds. So maybe they, maybe they're the ones that get the money too. Fred Stewart, the MG42 is Hitler's zipper. I've also heard Hitler's chainsaw. MK says you could do memberships and super chats and give it to charity. I don't know enough about super chats, or I don't know what they are, but I don't know why I can't get behind the idea of charging people to talk here. It just seems odd to me. So the Fuse Man, you don't want to be in front of a low-flying owl. Mark Hoover, can someone explain the owl joke? I remember long before I worked in radio, when I was just a kid, listening to the radio, and there's all these disc jockeys who had inside jokes. And I always wondered what it would be like to have an inside, and how would you come up with one? And then I realized right now, here I am at my age, 58 years old, and my show has got like 6 inside jokes. One is the $100 bill. One's the low-flying owl. And the thing is that I don't wake up in the morning and go, hey, today I'm going to have an inside joke. It's just something comes along, it's kind of funny. And so what happened originally was I did the video about the guy who was flying an airplane coming in for a landing at an airport. And he came in so low that he clipped the truck that was on the road. He sued the truck, saying that because it was a collision between an airplane and a truck, the truck's insurance would have to pay for the damage to the airplane. And a Michigan court said, yeah, that makes sense to us. And so I didn't have a caution low-flying airplane sign for an illustration. But a couple of days later, I remembered that I had a photograph on my phone I had taken down in Florida a couple of years ago of a sign that said, caution, low-flying owls by the side of the road. And it was apparently there's owls that live near there that nest on the ground or underground, and they leave and they fly, and cars can hit them if they're not careful. So I always thought the caution, low-flying owl sign was funny. So I took a photograph of it. And later on, when I was talking about that, I used that sign as a thumbnail. And then later in the credits to the video, I put, yes, beware of low-flying owls. And because my credits never change, it's been there for a while. So it's just become a running joke. And then another guy who watches the show sent in the sign because he's going to aircraft school, learning to become a pilot, I believe. And He goes, I don't have the owl sign, but I got one for an airplane. Is that close enough? So there you go. Mark S., the owls near me keep the squirrel population in check. Well, you know, that's the thing. If nature works, it all keeps itself in check. Hammond Egger goes, what's with the intro video today? And I'm not sure what you mean by that question. I posted a new intro video on my page just to replace the old one. I've had an intro video for 4 years now, and the video was 3 years old. And so I thought, I'm just going to replace the video. So I pulled out the old one, put in a new one, and I've had several people ask me why I did that. And it's like, well, the old one's 3 years old. So I don't know why anybody would have seen that unless you were on the page. CJ LaChapelle, what is your typical schedule of when you do live videos? You mean the live streams? I do the live streams every Sunday at 1 o'clock, almost always. The Fuse Man, did the owls get a warning sign warning moving land vehicles? No, what they should do instead, though, is have a bridge that goes over so that the owls can go under. See, that would work too. Joel Kirschman, have you come up with a Lehto slaw recipe yet? Sort of. AZ Mika 85, it pops up on the feed as a new video, but it shouldn't. I specifically checked the box saying do not send to subscribers. So I guess the question is, you see, I don't know why it would be in your feed. The video should not have been in your feed because when I post a video, it says, "Do you want to send this to subscribers? Yes or no?" And I unclick that box, and then so I don't know why it would do that. But again, it's not like I'm going to put up one of those every single day or anything like that. So don't watch it. It's just 1 minute long, and it's got no commercials on it. So next thing I know, people are going to say, yeah, it's got commercials on it, and there's a commercial in the middle of the 30-second mark. Oregon Expat, still back on the heavy machine gun thing, says refers to guns of a size of 12.7 millimeters, 50 caliber, up to 14.9 millimeter. And the MG42 is 50 caliber. So that would be a heavy machine gun, following that logic. But yeah, Robert Hodgins, we're talking about the 1 minute video. The 1 minute video is simply the channel trailer. Okay. So if you ever go, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, maybe you're not, but let me see if I can find it. On my YouTube, let's see here. Dashboard. Oh, I don't think I can do it on mine. I can't do it on the handheld. I can only do it on the desktop. But I mean, I could figure it out, but but if I go to the page that is Steve Lehto's page, it's got the banner across the top, which I changed also last week from the Turban car to the Viper. And then it says Steve Lehto, welcome to my page. It has about me. It shows like most recent videos. And then there's one video, and then you hit that page, it autoplays. And it just says, hey, I'm Steve Lehto. Welcome to Lehto's Law. So that's the video that I had up for 3 years. And it got to be where I got sick of seeing it because every time I go to the page, I see it also. So I got sick of seeing it. So I changed the video. That's all. And Sarah Callahan, the new intro is not in my feed. Yeah, YouTube should not have notified you of the video because I clicked the thing saying do not notify anybody. David C. Allen is checking in from Eagle, Idaho. Tiger Stripes, I once heard of a town that had small pets mysteriously disappearing. and had owls in its church's belfry. And they later found it full of little collars. It sounds like a ghost story, doesn't it? Steve Taylor, Saskatchewan says hi. How you doing? Idris Taylor says it's on the video page, but not notifications. So I've given up trying to figure these things out. Motham 51, you can the robot lady. Well, in the video, I introduced myself. Hi, I'm Steve Lehto. So it would have made the video longer, and the length of the video is limited to 1 minute. I don't want to waste any time. Hauptmann 6 is all but the M2 were 30 caliber. Yeah, I apologize. I'm thinking of the American heavy machine guns 50 caliber. The German is smaller. Achilles' Last Stand. Anybody else watching the Colts versus Lions game right now? If you are, let me know the score. Only because I don't believe it till the last minute anyways. Hauptmann 6, hello from KZoo, which of course is Kalamazoo. So Lee Harvey, there's nothing like a bald eagle gliding in front of your car to make your blood run cold. Yeah, I actually had a red-tailed hawk. I stopped at a light. Red-tailed hawk came in and flared and landed on not a telephone line, but like a line that connected a telephone pole to something else, like a guy wire, 10 feet off the ground. Big old red-tailed hawk, but yay big, big bird. So Tim Denhart, I read somewhere that Michigan, if an under 13 turns up at court without a lawyer, they get their case instantly dismissed. Well, what are they doing in court at the age of 13? Wouldn't they wind up in juvie to begin with? But I can't imagine that would ever be the case. Chevy Mustang, Lions Colt, 7-7. Hauptmann 6, Lee Harvey, you aren't kidding. A turkey will do that too. Yeah, I saw a turkey. I've told the story before. I saw a turkey hit a truck windshield right in front of me. And it was on, I think, 131 off of 10, heading up towards Traverse City. But I was coming down. So I was heading south. Big old semi at full speed heading north. And I saw a turkey. I mean, it was like a bad movie. I saw a turkey coming from this side of the road, come running. And for whatever reason, he decided to try to elevate at the last second. And he managed to get up. And I mean, it was like somebody put a feather pillow through a fan, just whoosh, with all the feathers. It's like imagine that crossed with, like, I don't know, fireworks or something. And I mean, it smashed the windshield on the truck. And, I was in traffic going this way, and I saw the whole thing unfold in the space of like 2 seconds. It was crazy. So Road Wrench says, move the clocks back a half hour and never move them again. What's funny about that is there actually are places in America that used to do daylight savings time or some variation thereof that were not on the hours. So that in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in the heyday of Calumet and Hecla Mine, they ran their own clocks and they were a half hour off. So that in Detroit, it would be 6 o'clock. Calumet was 5:30. Not 5, 5:30. SHP Adoinker, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. I believe we all thought that was true. JFC Junior 01, hey Steve from Boston. Thank you for checking in. I actually watched that movie, What's Your Number? With Anna Faris last night, and it's set in Boston. And there's a scene in the movie where she and the guy she winds up with go down to the water, and it's late at night, and they're both acting goofy, and she says, why don't we just jump in the water? And they both decide to get undressed and jump in the water. Now, I've never been to Boston. I'll admit this. But is the water right there, right off the edge, is that water something you want to jump into? Because I don't know why. In my mind, I was thinking Detroit River. Okay. So I'm just curious if anybody in Boston could tell me, is that water something you'd want to jump into or not, especially at night? Betty Boop, wild turkeys are common in Michigan. Oh, yes. See them everywhere. There's a dirt road I mountain bike on within a mile of my house. I routinely see families of them down there. And you might see 10, 15, 20 at a time. Big ones. Yeah. So. Alan V, go to my page and you'll see a video of a turkey going through my windshield. Kind of scary. Yeah, but first of all, are you okay? And number two, what did it do to your windshield? I mean, I assume you said goes through the windshield, takes your windshield out? That had to be a mess. Wow. MK's got wild turkeys in Southern California. Yeah, I think wild turkeys are what we call ubiquitous. They're everywhere. CJ LaChapelle, have ever killed your own turkey for Thanksgiving? No, I have not. I'm actually not a big fan of turkey. Left to my own devices, I will get a honey-baked ham. Of course, I'm not always left to my own devices on Thanksgiving, but that's what we often do when I have a vote. JFCJR01, not really, is cleaner now than 20 years ago, but you can't see in the water. And that's not good. Isn't the song Dirty Water by the Standells about that water? Anybody? Oh, boy. Road Wrench. Here in West Virginia, we've got Wild Turkey and Captain Morgan. You don't want Captain Morgan going through your windshield, though. Oh, boy. Doug Jones, not as many as the Canada geese. It's funny because Canada geese are big. They're big, big birds. And they're fascinating because if you see them flying overhead, especially in huge, huge formations, and especially they're low, they make a lot of noise. And I find them fascinating. But they're big and they're also pests. And so if you have them in your yard, what they leave behind is really, really gross. It's bad. So the Canada geese are one of those things where when they first show up, you go, that's kind of cute. They're kind of neat. And then after a while, it's like, oh, way too many of them. So Tommy Cash, hey, Steve, have you seen the FTC lawsuit against Amazon? Now claiming you don't own the videos you buy, just a long-term rental, even though it clearly says buy. I've heard about that. But I've not looked into it. So I'll take a look at that because that's a question people have been having lately. And I've had some people ask me in different contexts that if you buy a video from Amazon or anybody else and you've got a copy of it, do you own it the same way as if you bought the DVD or bought the VHS tape? Remember those? And so that's a question. So it doesn't surprise me that they make that argument, but who knows? We'll see. I'll take a look. Scott Winters, hello, Steve. Pedaling while watching you on a recumbent bike at my local recreation center in Virginia Beach. Thanks. So you're riding a recumbent bike indoors, like on rollers, or is it set up like a Peloton, but you're recumbent as opposed to upright? Very cool, though. I did my Peloton this morning, and it's so cold outside. I'm going to do it again this afternoon. So, Wild Bill 57, love that Dirty Water. Yes, it is. The Standells, the great 3-chord rock and roll song. Carl's Corner, no turkey would have killed my own turducken. Betty Boop, never seen wild turkeys in the Pacific Northwest. Lots of Canadian geese, though. Turkeys might be here, but never seen any. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the range of the wild turkey is, but I know that there are a lot of places. And they can get up and move off the ground, but it isn't flight in that sense. But they tend to live in wooded areas. And you'll see them out in fields often during dating season, shall we say. And then later on, you'll see families where there'll be, mother, father, and a bunch of hoodlums, bunch of kids. So Teddy B checking in from Panama City, Florida. Matthew Shostrom says the turkeys are mysterious. They don't appear for 10 months, but for the other two, they're everywhere and in large groups. Carl's Corner, you don't own your phone, you're renting it. Depends on who you're buying it from and so on, what the contract says. I have people who claim that you don't buy anything. You don't own your house. You pay taxes on it. You don't own your car. You have to put a plate on it. It depends on your definition of ownership is, I guess. Don Store One, hey brother. Hey Don Store, how are you? NB says you see wild turkeys here in New Brunswick once in a while, though they are very rare. Road Wrench says turkeys roost in trees that get there by flying, but how long can they sustain flight for? That's the question. In other words, I think a turkey is one of those birds that can get itself off the ground, but for the most part, it's not like they go up there and soar around and hang out with the turkey vultures on the thermals. Don Jackson, do you hunt or fish? I don't hunt, and I haven't fished in a long time. I used to go fishing all the time when I was a little kid, trout fishing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, back in the good old days. Jason Johnson, turkey vultures everywhere. Oh yeah. Jared Draper, we got them in Nebraska and Kansas. I assume we're talking about the turkeys. Matthew Shostrom, how would you feel if an HOA was formed overnight in your neighborhood? They couldn't do it. HOAs, generally speaking, are formed at the time that the property is subdivided. That's how they get the HOA into the deeds to the homes. Wade Pittenger, what is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? Are we talking African swallow or not? What's your favorite color? I recently watched one of your favorite movie, The Judge. Even though it was supposed to be Indiana, it was filmed in Massachusetts. I've been to all the places in the movie other than the courtroom/house. Is that the movie with Robert Downey in it? Mark Hoover, the Washington Post says they don't fly more than about 100 yards. The Washington Post reported that? Keith Gregory says they gave away free turkeys on WKRP in Cincinnati. Yeah, the tricky part was you had to catch them. They were dropped. Oh. Oh, boy. Jason Johnson, HOAs are evil. You know what's funny is I occasionally go back in and look and see which videos of mine are doing well. And I did one about a guy who was fighting with his HOA about something and he won a lawsuit. And so the headline was something like, man wins lawsuit against HOA. It's like the most popular video I've done in 6 months. Almost never talk about HOAs. I should probably talk about them more often. I owned a condo at one point in time and had to deal with the condo association, which is the same thing. And I also rented a condo years ago, same thing. And it was just a nightmare trying to deal with those people. They're universally disliked, the HOAs are. Tommy Cash, have you watched a civil action based in Woburn, Massachusetts? Yes, I have. And I also read the book. I read the book before the movie came out. John Travolta's in it, strangely enough, based on a true story about an attorney who takes on a really, really strange class action lawsuit against some chemical manufacturers. And it becomes this just nightmare of litigation. And they wind up getting a decent settlement, but along the way, the law firm basically almost goes bankrupt trying to just keep this case going. Very, very strange story. But it's I thought a very good movie. I'm not sure many people who don't enjoy legal stuff will like it. I don't think it did all that well at the box office, but I liked the movie a lot. And I also read the book and I enjoyed the book as well. So. Scott Winters is riding a stationary recumbent bike made by Life Cycle. Okay, very cool, very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. I've got my Peloton set up, and I set it up in a room, and I had an extra monitor that I wasn't using. So I put a monitor up against the other wall, and I've got a laptop connected to it so I can watch, and I have a wireless mouse like this, so I can watch stuff off the laptop on the big monitor. So when I'm on my Peloton, handlebars are here. There is a monitor right here, but I just turn the sound off on that, and I watch videos off of YouTube and stuff. But I still use the Peloton's data to show like how long I've been riding for and how much force I put out and all that. But I really enjoy that. So, but it's so hard to stay in shape in the wintertime, especially in Michigan. So Achilles' last stand. Nice transition from Nazis to HOAs. Dixie Champagne is pronounced Woburn. Yeah, Massachusetts has all their own pronunciation rules. DJ Sting says there's a Gene Hackman movie called Class Action. Is pretty good too. Yes, there is. I like that movie also. Is it Mary Elizabeth Mastro Antonio? Is that her name? She's in that too. And there's a little bit of a strange thing there where, supposedly like he's filing the lawsuit and she's defending it. It's mother-daughter or father-daughter. Sort of a father-daughter dance, it's a father-daughter lawsuit, but it's a good movie though. I like that one too. That was a few years before that though. Scott Winter says in Virginia Beach, thousands and thousands of Canadian geese that don't migrate anymore. People feed them to the point they've stayed and they reproduce and are a huge problem. I know that happens. There are different, I think swans also in some places have stopped migrating because it's warming up and there's enough food around for them. So that happens, I guess. AZ Mika 85, Worcester. Yeah. I actually used to be born in Worcester, whatever it is. Road Wrench says if a 13-year-old was in court, he'd be a Ute. I think he'd be a Ute up to about 16 or 17, right? Doug Jones, when you ride your Peloton, do you ride halfway and turn around and ride back home? That beats pedaling backwards, doesn't it? I do watch the ranking on the side because it'll show you how you're doing against other people who are riding at the same time you are. And once in a while, you'll see somebody who's right near you, and I got to stay ahead of that person. I got to. You start racing somebody, you have no idea who they are, where they are, what the story is. So, Justin Emo Howling Wolf, your hair is receding. No, it's not. But thank you for saying that. For some odd reason, I won't. It's too late now. No one's accused me of having a toupee for quite some time now. Betty Boop, I've read about wild turkeys attacking postmen trying to deliver mail. I've never heard of wild turkeys attacking people. Oh, wait, no, I've seen it, I guess, on like YouTube and stuff occasionally. They also go out and again, during dating season, they'll occasionally go out and attack their reflections in cars and stuff, right? Right? I've never seen it. But likewise, I mean, I've seen deer that forget where they are and start fighting in public also. I've seen that recently too, but I think it's fairly uncommon. When I'm mountain biking, I see wild turkeys, they run. I mean, they vanish. Same with deer. I see deer from time to time. And likewise, they just vanish. They don't want to have anything to do with a guy on a bicycle. Jason Johnson, geese are bullies. Yeah. Oh, if you go someplace where the geese have become really, really acclimated to people, you will encounter some bold geese. And once in a while, geese will come up. And I mean, I remember there was a lake in Birmingham, Quarton Lake, and people used to go there and feed the ducks and the geese. This is something you did. And I remember walking there with friends of mine, and some geese come walking up and they're like, "What do you got for us?" Like, I got nothing. And they start, they're very unhappy that you don't have food for them. And it's like, hey, look, not everyone has to bring you food. So. Blind Leader 42. Steve, what do you think of the demise of verb tenses in the English language? Do you have an example? I know that the English language is evolving constantly, but I'm not sure about the demise of verb tenses unless you give me an example. QA Library, my friend in Canada did not have her mail delivered due to a bear on her porch. The mail people took a photo of the bear next to the door. Well, yeah, that seems like a reasonable excuse. Dogs are one thing, bears are another. Matthias, the Romans used geese as watchdogs. I've actually seen places that use geese. They have like two fences with grass in the middle. They put geese in the middle. And if somebody comes by, the geese make a racket. They make a racket. Matthew Shostrom says he saw a news title. Florida man caught illegally feeding wild alligators resists arrest and says he's a good boy. He loves bagels. The question is, how do you discover the alligator likes bagels? Presumably, you toss him a couple, right? Alan V mentioned in your car speeding videos about snapping turtles. I've seen plenty of them on I-75 south of Detroit. No way I'd want to eat one, though. But here's the thing, though. I mean, they're really cool animals. And I usually have a pair of gloves, at least in my truck. In my 2 Explorers, I keep gloves. If I see a turtle in the road, and I can do it safely, I will stop, put my gloves on, pick the turtle up, and carry it across the road in the direction it's going, and get it out of the road. I've probably saved 15 or 20 turtles in the last 5 years doing that. And I have actually picked up a snapping turtle this big around. Very, very heavy. I don't pick them up too high because sometimes you pick them up and they'll pull everything in. Sometimes they will reach back and try to claw you, or they'll turn their head and try to snap at you. But if you grab them right in the middle of the shell, they can't. You have to faith. They can't reach you. Even so, all that jerking motion, you could drop it. So I pick them up and I keep them just this far off the ground and run them over the edge and put them on the side and walk away. And then they usually realize, oh, this is a good guy. He's cool. But you would not want to hit one of those with your car, or, for instance, like my Viper. This clearance here, there's an air dam under there that's got almost no clearance at all. And if you hit a snapping turtle with that, it would cause a lot of damage. So I like to help them across the road, but, I see them from time to time. Yeah, tiger stripes. Those snappers will take a finger. Yeah, I put the gloves on, like I said, and I'm very, very good. A lot of turtles, the non-snappers, will do the thing where they just tuck everything in. You pick them up, carry them over, and put them over. It's no big deal. But the snappers, those guys are aggressive. And I've probably mentioned this before, but I was out at Pontiac Lake State Park with my brother mountain biking one fall. And we'd seen some deer jumping around out in the bushes and stuff. And we came around a curve and we heard something smash, smash, smash that was walking through the underbrush, making so much noise. And we both stopped. And I go, that can't be a deer. Because deer, it's usually hop, hop, and they're gone. And something was making this noise. So we both put our bikes down and we walked up over the edge of this little rise. And we looked down and there's a snapping turtle like this big around, like almost the size of a manhole cover. And ancient. I mean, this thing was prehistoric, covered in, like moss almost, like seaweed. And just as we saw him, he got the edge of this little pond and just disappeared into it and was gone. but he was making so much noise because he was huge. It was probably outside of a zoo. It was easily the biggest turtle I've ever seen. Maybe the biggest turtle I ever saw in my entire life. I'm just not sure if I've seen a bigger one in a zoo, but this thing was huge. But I did not have a cell phone with me. No photographs. So Betty Boop, Steve, you mentioned that Jay Leno called you and congrats on your Viper. What did he say? Did you meet up? No. I sent him a note and said, "Hey Jay, just want to let you know," because he's got 2 Vipers. And he likes them. I said, "Hey Jay, just to let you know, I got myself a Viper. It's a 99, and I told him all about it." And he just called me and just said, "Hey, think you're gonna enjoy it. I enjoy mine." And he told me the 2 he's got. He's got a first year, and he's got one that's a few years newer than mine. And short, very, very short phone call. And so I haven't been out in California in a while. So I'm really hoping that one of these days I can get a chance to go back out to California and drop in at his garage and maybe bring some recording equipment and talk to him. So Steve Taylor, do you wear the gay cycling clothes when you Peloton? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I wear biking shorts when I mountain bike, and I wear just regular gym stuff when I ride the Peloton. I don't get into all of the color coordinated, like I have a $120 shirt and a $200 pair of shorts and the socks. No. I tend to sweat when I work out, so I will wear stuff that I can sweat in and then take it and throw it in the wash. So that's that. There's nothing wrong with that, but we've all seen that before. If you've ever seen a place that has like aerobics or high-end type exercise stuff, you'll see the people who dress up to go work out. Little difference. Robert Lee, pleaded, pled. The news people can't get it right, just like decimated. They have no clue they should use devastated. That's an interesting point, because I'll say that someone pled guilty. And they say that, I believe technically correct is pleaded guilty. But it's one of those things that's probably going to change over time fairly soon. Decimated is the one that people really misuse, because decimated literally meant to reduce by 10%. That's the DEC, decimate. So that term, I believe, came from Roman times, when if a unit of soldiers was punished, they would take 1/10 of them at random and punish them, including possibly capital punishment, to teach the other 90%, guys, that could happen to you, get your act together. So decimation was a specific thing that happened to 1/10 of something. And they now use decimated as if it means devastated or destroyed or something like that. And that's not what it meant. It was originally, like I said, a very specific thing. And people often say, Steve, you've got these Oxford English dictionaries back here. Shouldn't you refer to them from time to time? And I always say, I should more often, shouldn't I? So we will look up decimate. DEC, deceptious, decidedness, decimally, decimate, to exact a tenth or a tithe from, or to tax the amount exactly of 1/10. And then the second use is to divide into tenths. And then the 3 is the military term I just gave you, to select by a lot and put to death 1 in every 10 of a body of soldiers, a practice in the ancient Roman army. So not only did I yank that out of thin air, so to speak, I even got the Roman army correct. So once in a while, I know what I'm talking about. Once in a while. Idris Taylor, the other 9 Legionnaires had to beat the unlucky one to death. Oh, boy. Yeah, Blind Leader 42 points out that means almost exactly the opposite of what most people use it for. Yeah, and so what's probably going to happen over time is that will become the accepted definition or an accepted definition, and it's going to be kind of like, it started out meaning this, but it became that. It happens, Reggie, good evening from the UK. Good evening. Achilles' Last Stand says Lions are down 20-7 at the half. Don't worry. They'll put on a little bit of a show in the third quarter and then downhill from there. Matthew Shostrom, the founders of Rome, were raised by wolves, and yet the flag showed an eagle. Are we talking about Romulus and Remus? Scuba Stevie 62, got to go. See ya. Cheers, Steve. Thank you for the time you spent here, my friend. Nigel Carruthers, the Romans were hardcore. You mess up in battle, and a random 10% of you are dead. No pressure. Well, you got to remember the Romans had to exert influence over a very, very large portion of the face of the planet. And to do that, you got to have good soldiers who follow direction very, 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 very well. Very, very well. Alan V., have you heard about the family court judge in Raleigh County, West Virginia? The one who got in trouble? Several people have sent it to me, yes. William Knoll, Romulus, Michigan. Yeah, Romulus, Michigan, I assume is named after one of the founding twins of Rome, Romulus and Remus. They were twins, right? I'm getting that wrong. I could be wrong. I don't know. Justin Priolo, would you ever consider converting any of your ICE cars and turn them into electric vehicles? I just saw that. Is it Chevrolet? General Motors is going to start putting out a crate motor, but it's an electric crate motor. Finally, a crate motor that's actually a motor. But that'd be pretty cool. So it might be fun. It might be fun. I'm not sure. Again, I still have yet to drive a full-blown electric car. I will one of these days. So I've had several people recently offer to let me drive an electric car. It'll happen one of these days. So FDSS, good afternoon, Steve. Dude, I apologize. I know you called me last week. We will get together sooner or later. Road Wrench, which car company have you had to sue the most? I've never done the math, but I don't believe that there's any actual difference between the big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, all day long here in Michigan. But that's because they have the biggest market share, primarily. At least that's my opinion. Betty Boop, thanks, Steve. Great chat. Have a great day. NB Hummer EV. I just saw the ads for that. That's one of those things out of left field. If that thing's got any range to speak of, it could be a game changer. I'm very, very curious to see how well the Hummer EV does, how many they build, how many they sell, and how soon they hit the road. But we'll find out. So, anyways, I'm going to wrap it up now because I just realized I've been here well over an hour and a half. So, and my throat's starting to go again. So I will talk to you again, same time next weekend, 1:00 Sunday. Hopefully this time change thing will be taken care of. I apologize to those of you who saw my channel trailer, not knowing what it was. I didn't realize anybody would see it other than the people who logged on and saw my page. But that won't happen again, at least for another 3 years. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.